Welcome to the first installment of the Words Their Way professional development. We are excited for you to learn about the impact of word study on our students, how it impacts not just word knowledge, but their reading and writing as well. The PD videos will follow along the chapters in what we call the PD book. It is the book you see on this slide entitled Word Study for Phonics, Vocabulary, and Spelling Instruction. I cannot stress enough how important this book is as you learn about and have hiccups with implementation. It will be your go-to place for answers as you navigate the program. So first, why word study? Why are we pursuing this direction? We're first going to talk about why we are focusing on word study in the Smithville School District. As mentioned before, decisions we make will be aligned with the Smithville School District Literacy Plan. We go to that document now. I'm going to go to page 11. Give me a second to scroll through there. So if you look at page 11 of the literacy plan, you see that our literacy philosophy uses the term balanced literacy, balanced approach to literacy. Balanced literacy includes a gradual release with reading workshop, writing workshop. It also includes a read aloud and word study. Word study is a key component that impacts reading and writing and must not be dismissed as an unnecessary part of a child's balanced literacy continuum. If you look down here, one of our key beliefs on that list is foundational reading instruction, number 5. We have spent several years building our research-based foundational reading program in K through 2, which is Pathways to Reading. Words Their Way will continue our foundational systematic approach as it's utilized in Tier 1 in 3rd and 4th grades and intervention in 5th and 6th. We will now have research-based, explicit, and systematic foundational reading instruction through all elementary grades. One more page I'm going to refer to in this document is page 25 and 26. So this is an example schedule of what your literacy block could look like, including all components of balanced literacy that we mentioned before, the read aloud, word work, reading workshop, and writing workshop. You'll see right here that word work is a component of the structure that we want to see in your day. It's listed here as 20 minutes. There are some days where it may take 20 minutes and some days that it may take less. How to fit word study in will be discussed in future videos. Let's see. We are excited that we will now have multiple ways. Oh, let me go back to here. Here we go. Okay, so it's important to note that Pathways to Reading, as we mentioned before, is aligned with with Words Their Way. It is recommended as a follow-up program after K through 2 students go through Pathways to Reading. Other programs we could have investigated would not have closely matched the key foundational beliefs in Pathways to Reading. Number 3, we are excited that we will now have multiple ways to measure a student's literacy in the upper elementary grades, including NWEA, the Fluency Benchmark, and the QSI, which is a spelling assessment used in Words Their Way. A final reason we'll discuss today for implementing Words Their Way is that it has 4 decades of research behind this approach. And as mentioned before, it is systematic in its scope and sequence, and the instruction is targeted and explicit to the unique needs of the student. As we go through this professional development video, I will be referring to this book, information in this book, the PD book, but in the back of this book, everybody should have a little insert that looks like this image here. If you pull off this tab, you're going to see a code where you can go online and sign up for the PD toolkit that goes with this book. I would recommend that you do that. Directions for this are on the back of this little tab here. It tells you what website to go to and walks you through how to do that. So once you do that, it will look like this. This is the Pearson PD toolkit. There's some helpful things in here. There's some things that might not be as helpful, but it definitely is worth taking a look at. So it has things to do with assessments, sorts, games, videos that help explain the program, and additional resources. Again, I would encourage you to sign up for this, utilize the resources that are in this, and maybe something that not all of our pilot teachers had time to investigate that would really help the process of implementation. Okay, so what is word study? Those of you who have piloted Words Their Way have a good understanding of word study, but to be sure everyone is on the same page, we'll go over some key tenets of what word study is. First, the definition. Word study is defined as the study of word parts and their meanings. It is a combination of phonics, spelling, and vocabulary. A key tenet is that students are studying words, categorizing them based on patterns they see in sounds, patterns, and meaning. The students are making meaning as they study these words. This is the opposite of the approach when students are told upfront what the rule is to memorize and apply it to a preset list of words. Specific to Words Their Way, word study includes hands-on activities, so it is not passive learning, comparing and contrasting by categorizing word features, discovering similarities and differences within and between categories, and as mentioned, studying sounds, spelling, patterns, and meaning. It is very important to know as you implement and assess kids within Words Their Way that there's a difference between applying generalizations in spelling versus the rules of spelling. A key tenet of Words Their Way is to focus on generalizations versus rote memorization of rules for a weekly spelling test. When we explicitly teach rules, kids can become frustrated and confused with all the exceptions in the English language. An example would be when two vowels go walking and the first vowel does the talking. With this rule, there are almost always, as with any rule, there's exceptions to this one, which again can become frustrating for students. In teaching students to look for generalizations, on the other hand, we teach them to critically think as they categorize words and look for patterns. In this way, they are active learners studying words for those patterns and generalizations. As they learn these generalizations, they begin to apply these in reading and writing. I love how Pat Cunningham puts it in her book, Phonics They Use. The brain is not a rule applier, but a pattern decoder. It's simply the way our brain works. While we look at single letters, we are looking at them and consider all the letter patterns we know. Successfully decoding or encoding a word occurs when the brain recognizes a familiar spelling pattern or searches through its store of words with similar patterns. So in other words, generalizations, looking for patterns in words, is simply the way that our brain works. And so students are more likely to catch on to this approach. So what it is and what it isn't. If you look on the left-hand side of the chart, word study is learning particular words and their features, recognizing and thinking about patterns across words, generalizing ideas, developing strategies. So a lot like the strategies we teach in reading workshop, they're going to be given strategies to attack the decoding and spelling of words. It is a very active program. Students are doing the work, students are doing the thinking, not sitting passively listening to the teacher all the time. It's developmentally appropriate. It is very differentiated. It is not one size fits all. Everybody studies the same spelling rule every week. It is based on where the student is in their spelling development. It is collaborative and it can be fun as well. Word study is not learning letter sounds in isolation, reading controlled text. On the other hand, we are using the authentic text that kids are reading, that their student choice books, and applying word study within those words in their student choice books. It is not passive. It's not only spelling, but it's also not only vocabulary. It is not one size fits all, and it is not boring. And there are ways that we're going to talk about through these videos to make it engaging for kids. So the purpose of word study. As you implement words their way, you're looking for students to be able to do two things. The first is the generalizations we've been talking about, which will reveal the logic and consistencies within our written English language system. General knowledge is what we use when we encounter a new word. When we do not know how to spell a word, or even when we do not know the meaning of a specific word, the better our general knowledge of the system, the better we are at decoding unfamiliar words, spelling correctly, or guessing the meaning of words. An example would be as follows. The general knowledge that words that are similar in spelling are related in meaning, such as compete and competition, makes it easier to understand the meaning of a word like competitor, even if it is unfamiliar. The second purpose of word study is to help students master recognizing, spelling, defining, and using specific words. So in addition to the generalizations, we will discuss with students the spelling of specific words. For example, the word rain. The word rain could have several different spellings. The actual spelling, R-A-I-N, or R-A-N-E, R-A-I-N-E, or R-A-Y-N-E. To become fully literate, we need specific knowledge about individual words. Specific word knowledge will help students be able to determine which is the correct spelling of words. Okay, so the three layers of English orthography. So within the English language and within our word study program, Words Their Way, there are three layers of English learning. There is the alphabetic layer, the pattern layer, and the meaning layer. The alphabetic layer is based on the relationship between letters and sounds. For example, in the word cat, a single letter represents each sound. Students can blend the sounds for k, a, t to read the word cat. The pattern layer overlies the alphabet layer because there's not always a single sound for each letter. In the English language, single sounds are sometimes spelled with more than one letter or are affected by other letters. When students look beyond single letter and sound matchups, they must search for patterns. For example, a final E will often make the preceding vowel stand for the long vowel sound, like in the word cape. The meaning layer focuses on groups of letters that represent meaning directly. Examples of these groups or letters include prefixes and suffixes. Here's a specific example of how meaning works in the spelling system. Take the prefix RE, whether students pronounce it as re, like as in rethink, or ra, as in remove, its spelling stays the same because it directly represents the meaning. Another example would be misbehave and misspell. No matter, I guess the way to word that would be the meaning of miss is the same in both of those words, and they use that meaning in order to be able to say the meaning of the whole entire word. So we will stop the first video of your professional development at this point. The second video will get into the stages of spelling development, which is how we differentiate for student needs within this program.